Joining us now, though, on the state front, running for lieutenant governor, the Republican nominee, State Senator Jill Vogel. Hey, Jill, good to have you.
Good morning. It's always great to start my day with you.
I know, it's kind of fun. You get to talk to our audience, tell them what's going on. But let's first get to the really things that matters. How's your family? How's your son?
Everybody is great. My son just got back from camp on Sunday. He's gone for a week. I missed him terribly. And my 11-year-old son is still away at camp. So it's kind of sad and lonely.
No, you like
I have to say, as much as my life revolves around hard work in my campaign, it truly does revolve around my children.
When the kids go away, it's tough. When the kids go away, it's tough, right?
Yes, it is.
No question about it.
So they're really good, and we're on the road and on the trail every day, all the time, with a kid or without a kid. And it's the 1st of July. I mean, the 1st of August. So you know what that means?
What?
It's really close.
Yeah,
November election is way closer. We're like 3 months away. We have August, September, October. That's it.
You guys are 100 days away, right?
That's right. We are.
All right, how do you win this race? Let's just cut to the chase. The niceties are over. I love you, all that good stuff. How do you win that race?
Right. So here's how we win. We have to turn out everybody that we can reach, everybody who should care about what happens in November. You just talked about, we can't lose another statewide race. We've had a 7-loss streak. This ticket is not going to let that happen. I'm not going to let that happen. Mm-hmm. And I'm making absolutely sure that I'm reaching out to all of our hardest-working, loyal people who got this president elected and who I hope will help me get elected and who believe what I believe. And then not only do we have to turn out all of our conservatives, our Republicans, but guess what? That's not enough. You can't win in Virginia anymore if you just turn out Republicans. We need Democrats. We need independents. We need all of those people who care about making Virginia a well-managed state. And, you know, I'm not doing my job if I'm not out there telling the story about what's on the other side. The guy I'm running against is so far outside the mainstream of where, you know, Virginia voters are, but he's outside the mainstream of where his own Democratic ticket is. And I think that's why I never see him on the trail. I mean, you never see him anywhere. And he's laid down a marker for the kind of Virginia he wants, which is, you know, somebody who supports in-state tuition for illegal aliens. He supports a single-payer health care for Virginia. He supports a carbon tax. And he said, and get this is the part that's over the top, our Confederate monuments, our Civil War monuments, are offensive and psychologically damaging. So if he gets his way, Virginia would look very different. And, you know, we talked about the fact I've got children. I've got a family. I care a lot about what Virginia looks like in another generation. And I think that we're in a sort of fight for what Virginia is going to be for the next, not just 4 years, but what Virginia will be for the next 30 years. What our tax climate will be, what will happen in terms of what our education looks, what our regulatory environment looks like, and more importantly, you know, do we have any monuments to Virginia's history left? So I'm fighting, and I hope that other people who, you know, share our indignation over what it is folks on the other side would like to turn Virginia into. I hope they'll get involved and help us. And I love seeing everybody on the trail. We're campaigning 7 days a week now. So end of this week, we're in Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach. Over the weekend, we're in Roanoke. We're back in Virginia Beach on Monday. So rest assured, I am doing everything in my power to help us win.
I applaud and understand, Senator Vogel, how you're going to appeal to get Trump voters out. And I've said this before. I think if individual people on the Republican ticket can do that, they have a real chance to win this race, because 1.8 million people voted for Trump in Virginia this past November, and 350,000 came out and voted for Trump in the primary on Super Tuesday in March. So the voters are out there. You just have to give them a reason to come out. How are we going to appeal to the more moderate, more liberal, if you will, especially social liberal voter of Northern Virginia, especially with some of your past votes? How do you appeal, Senator, to that group?
I think that those people are naturally Jill Vogel supporters. And everywhere I go in Northern Virginia and everywhere I go and talk to people who are, you know, more middle of the road, they feel very, very comfortable with me mostly because I've served in the Senate for 10 years, and they've seen me buck my own party. They've seen me put principle over party over and over and over again. So when it comes to things like fighting for non-discrimination and state hiring and housing certain categories, I think that's where Republicans are. Republicans aren't haters. Republicans, there's no war on women. Republicans are the party that has stood up for what's right and stood up for principle. And sometimes we've been a little slower to do it, but we get there. And I've been willing to lead the charge and make that happen. And sometimes if my party didn't agree, I charged ahead anyway. And I think that a lot of people have respected me for taking those positions. I've been a champion of redistricting reform, of ethics reform, of an advocate for women's health, advocating for kids with autism, fighting desperately to get insurance coverage for those families who desperately need it. And, I fought for non-discrimination. And so I think that when I travel around the Commonwealth and talk about what makes Virginia a well-managed state, I am very, very careful to be kind and inclusive and not hyper-partisan. And that's what people want anyway. That's what our Republicans want. They want people who are sane and who have lots of common sense and who will work really hard and who will put principle over party, period.
You're absolutely right about that.
I think we're getting a lot of people for that.
I mean, that's how you're going to win this race, is by putting that coalition together. If you don't mind, we have a listener that would like to ask you a question. Joe in Williamsburg. Hey, Joe, you're on the air with Senator Jill Vogel.
Good morning, Senator. It's a pleasure to speak with you, ma'am.
Good morning, Joe. I want to talk to you from Williamsburg. I used to live in Williamsburg. I went to William and Mary.
Oh, very good, ma'am. Actually, it's more of a question / point of advice. The current governor, Terry McAuliffe, refuses to allow access to the federal government, to the Trump administration, to take a look at our voter rolls and make sure that everyone in the Commonwealth who is voting and who is registered to vote actually has the right to do so. I believe that this is possible one of the Achilles heels here. We have no idea how many people in the Commonwealth are voting illegally or are registered to vote and are not allowed to be registered to vote. This is a huge, huge part of what you as a lieutenant governor and the governor and the attorneys general would be involved in. Allowing one person to vote illegally is to dilute the vote of another person who has every right to be here.
So, Joe, what's your question, Joe?
Right.
What's your question?
What?
What's your question?
My question is, are you going to, if you are elected, will you help get the voter rolls turned over to the Trump administration here in Virginia so that we can make sure that our voter rolls are right on and that the only people who are voting in the Commonwealth of Virginia are actual citizens of this country?
Thanks, Joe.
And Joe, thank you for the question. The answer is yes. Those who vote deserve to have confidence in that process. That is the most important part of democracy and the most important part of elections. And I have a history, you'll be happy to know. I chair the Privileges and Elections Committee in the Senate. And when our own registrars were coming to us, Republicans and Democrats were coming to me as chair of the committee and saying, we have real problems with our voter roll. We have real problems with the process. And we have real problems with this current McAuliffe administration not stepping up and not addressing these issues. And so I called a special joint committee of the House and Senate Privileges and Elections Committee, and we allowed those registrars to come. And sadly, the media never covered any of that, but had people heard what it was that our election professionals, our registrars, the ones who run our elections in Virginia, what they had to say about irregularities, about issues in the system, about the lack of support they were getting from this current administration to help address these issues, people would have died. It was just unbelievable. And I did my very best to draw attention to it and to provide additional resources, and I will work with this president. And I stand with anybody who is willing to help fix this process, because I agree with you, Joe. This is a serious issue.
Joe Vogel, you gave a very comprehensive, passionate answer to Joe's question. Do you believe there is voter fraud going on in Virginia? You mentioned some discrepancy on the rolls, but does that mean that people are actually voting in the state that are not eligible? What do you think?
Yes. I know that they are. And I think that if you go back and you look at some of the issues that we've had, we've had Commonwealth attorneys prosecute voter fraud. So they obviously had the evidence. They've seen the evidence. And our responsibility is to make absolutely certain that our elections are run in a way that people have confidence that everybody's vote counts, and most of all, everybody's vote counts equally. And when you consider that we've had races that, are won by 25, 150 votes, that shows you how high the stakes are. And it starts with, having integrity in the process of our elections and standing with our registrars who are begging for support and for help and for resources. And the simple part of purging the role of the people who aren't, shouldn't be allowed to vote, who either no longer live here or are not legally allowed to vote. So the answer is yes. I know we have issues.
All right, let's get to actually doing the job of the lieutenant governor. If you're elected and you're presiding over the state Senate of Virginia, Joe Vogel, in 2018, it's a divided Senate, 21 Republicans. Actually, if you were to be elected, it would be 20 Republicans and 19 Democrats, and then your position would have to be filled, so it could end up in a tie, or 21-19. Either way, divided Senate. What is your relationship with Minority Leader and Senator Dick Saslaw, and how would you work with the minority and Saslaw specifically in order to really get things done?
So I can tell you, I've been in the Senate for 10 years, and in a 21-19 Senate, you don't accomplish anything. You don't get a single bill passed. You don't get the money that you want on the Finance Committee for your budget priorities unless you can work with people on the other side. I can work with anybody who's willing to work with me. And I have good relationships with my colleagues who are Democrats. I focus on the things that we agree on, not the things we disagree on. And I can commit to folks who support me and support our campaign that for the things that matter where we disagree, you can count on me to stick up for what's right. And in a 21-19 Senate, you break a lot of ties. This current lieutenant governor, who's now running for governor, he broke a tie vote on sanctuary cities. He voted for sanctuary cities in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Those are the kinds of things that determine the future of Virginia, what our economy looks like, what kind of burdens we're going to have on public education and on our social system, our social network. So if you look to me to stand for what's right when it matters, I will be there. But if you also are looking for somebody who has good relationships with people on the other side and can work with other people, I am eager to do that. I have a lot of respect for my colleagues who are Democrats. They work very hard. I don't always agree with their votes or their positions, but when it comes time to putting Virginia first, I'm willing to work with them to compromise and to make absolutely sure that we prioritize in the right way the kinds of things that desperately need our attention. And I think that's the value of a strong, proactive lieutenant governor who will, have a broad vision for Virginia and address some of these big issues that have been neglected horribly, like tax reform. We're desperate for tax reform in Virginia. We haven't addressed our income tax since 1972. We haven't changed the income tax bracket. We've got issues with B-poll. We've got issues with desperately needing to sort of modernize and streamline our regulatory process. And those aren't things that you can address in kind of a one-off way, a bill here and a bill there. It really takes aggressive statewide leadership that's willing to make decisions that are transformative, willing to push forward and think about Virginia in a much more modern way, and to not let us get smoked by states like Maryland and Kentucky and Tennessee and Georgia. I mean, look at what's happening to poor Virginia. And it's just been neglect. It's been a lack of vision. And I would relish the opportunity to work with a strong executive like Ed Gillespie and a strong attorney general like John Adams. Just imagine what we could accomplish. And I'm so excited for the opportunity.
Okay, I got a question here from George in Newport News who says, what are the main duties of Lieutenant Governor?
You preside over the Senate of Virginia, just like we talked about. You have an extraordinary opportunity to help run the Senate floor and decide on sort of the process and how the bills move, which is significant. You get to be a leader in terms of putting issues forward that the legislature is going to vote on. You preside over a number of boards and commissions. You have a great opportunity to impact economic development in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And, I mean, you just have this awesome opportunity to draw attention to the issues that, need attention. Like, I can tell you how many times I've been an advocate for really common sense bills like CBD oil, for example, for people who are sick. I introduced legislation that made it possible for children who have intractable epilepsy, for which there is no other treatment other than CBD oil, that bill passed, and that truly saved lives and helped families who were struggling. This past year, I tried to broaden that legislation to make it's cannabidiol oil, to make that oil available for people who are dying of cancer, with ALS, for whom we know this is a really important treatment, and it failed. Legislation with lots of common sense bills have failed, and I look forward to being a lieutenant governor that will help push forward on legislation that can't fail, that Virginians rely on and are desperate to pass. And that's one example. And I feel the same way about redistricting reform, about ethics reform. There's so many issues that, as your next lieutenant governor, I can draw attention to and try to move my caucus and move my colleagues in the right direction.
All right. So, look, final thing here, Joe Vogel, Senator Vogel, running for lieutenant governor. I've got a minute. You're running against an African-American candidate who's got a very nice family, Justin Fairfax, a really nice guy. How do you appeal to African-American voters?
So just to comment on the fact that you're right. Everything you just said is 100% true. Justin Fairfax is a really nice guy. We just happen to be very, very different on the issues that matter in Virginia. And I don't think that whether you're African-American or you're Hispanic or whether you're, an Indian American, Asian American, I'm working as hard as I possibly can to reach out to all of those communities. And they care about a well-managed state as much as they care about anything. And so just because you're a woman or just because you're African-American, in my mind, is not enough. You have to actually stand for something, and you have to be an advocate for people who desperately need help, and you have to have had, experience. And I think all of those things matter. And I think that when I have an opportunity to meet folks in the African-American community, they've been very, very supportive and been inspired by the things that I stand for and appreciative of my outreach and my willingness to show up. And, we're all Virginians. The reason that Virginia is the best place on the planet Earth is because we have people, frankly, from all over the planet Earth who are in Virginia and who are here and who are working hard for the same things that I believe in. And I think that we can, if we do our job, we can reach out to a number of minority communities where Republicans have failed in the past, where we don't spend enough time. And when we're not out there telling our story, we can't win. So I think if I have an opportunity to spend more time in more communities across Virginia, we will win. And we have a lot of support from African Americans around Virginia.
That's going to be the final word from Lieutenant Governor, Republican candidate Jill Vogel, State Senator Jill Vogel. For more information, Vogel for Virginia. That's it, right? Vogel,
that's right.
Vogel.
Got it.
I got to do all this by memory. I don't have anything written down. VogelForVirginia.com. VogelForVirginia.com. Jill Vogel making her case for Lieutenant Governor. I've got her as the favorite. And right now, I believe if the election were held today, of the three people on the Republican ticket, she's got the best chance to win. Jill Vogel, thanks for being with us. We appreciate your candor. By the way, I just got to point this out to my audience. Jill Vogel comes on 20 minutes, doesn't tell the topics. We just roll. People call in, ask questions. That's how she rolls.
I got nothing to hide. Anytime you'll have me, I will say yes.
Thank you.
Assuming they're not a carload of screaming children, I will always be on the show.
All right. Keep me up to date on what's happening with your kids and your family. I'm always interested in that. I
sure will. Yes, you were great to talk to me about Taz, my 8-year-old who has a stutter, and for whom I have been very worried and working on this for a while. And you are a great friend and a good person to always care about me and my family.
All right.
And I will never forget it. I love being on the show, and I will be on anytime you'll have me.
Thank you, Senator Vogel. Thank you so much. And keep working with Taz, having gone through the stuttering affliction my whole life, and especially when I was a child, I know how really tough it is.